I was scared. I was really scared. And I think that's why courage to me now is so meaningful, because everything that I have today is not because the timing was right. It was not because it was easy. It's not because I was smarter than the other people. It's not because I had it all figured out. It's not because I was fearless. It's because I decided to do it in spite of the fear.
Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard.
Lauren, welcome to the Communication Queens podcast. I am so excited to dive into all that is you, the free mama, now living from the road.
On location, Lauren Golden in Golden, Colorado, from the RV, here live and in person. It's crazy the things that we can do these days with technology.
I mean, you are embodying what it means to be a free mama. Like, you're embodying what was the brand that you built. And
yes, and I would say yes, and it's definitely been an iteration. You know, I never would have imagined this, even when I started the Free Mama. This was not something that was within reach. This wasn't something realistic to me or my family. This wasn't available. It was still the pipe dream. It was the retirement plan that my husband and I had always joked about even before we got married, of like, we'll get an RV and we'll travel full time. So even when I started, this type of freedom felt really far away. Freedom has had, I'd say, 4 evolutions for me. It really started as that freedom from the 9-to-5 job. That's what I started doing. I was a working mom. I wasn't there with my kids. I hated the way that felt. And I knew I had to find a way to make money on my own terms. And it was freedom from the boss. That was freedom, you know, but then there was this financial freedom that started to come as the Free Mama became successful, and location freedom. We moved, we were able to travel more. And so there was this thing. And then a couple of years ago, I had this experience where freedom really became about freedom of self. And it was I am who I am. I'm not going to apologize. I know my values. I know my worth. But again, that was the 3rd iteration of freedom. And now it's like the full expression, I would say, of all 3 of those things. And I'm sure that there are more iterations to come, but I don't think that any one of those for me would have come without the one before it. I think each one, and the hardships and the challenges, lend itself to that next opportunity becoming available.
what was the hardest transition?
Freedom of self.
Freedom of self.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said that going through the other 2. They felt really, really hard. But the freedom of self, particular scenario I went through, was in this really high ticket mastermind. And it was this program I had always dreamed of being a part of. You had to qualify to be included. So for me, there was a lot of sort of inner child stuff around, like, that was the cool kids table, you know, and I wasn't at the cool kids table growing up. And so there was lots of just, then I'll have made it. Then I will feel successful. Keep in mind, I'd already made $4 million. Like, you know, then I will have arrived. Then I will whatever. But I got in that room, and it was like finding out, you know, the Easter Bunny isn't real. Like, it was devastating. It was like, you know, I wasn't on the same page with these people. I found, yes, dear friends, but I also found remarkable lack of integrity that for me was really shocking. I have been told I'm Pollyannish. So I think I assume the best in people. I assume that people say the truth and say what they mean, because I do, and I lead that way. And so, you know, I found myself surrounded by these people who were both my peers, but also quite ahead of me financially in business. And it felt devastating. It felt like a loss. It felt like grief for the first 4 to 6 months. And then I arrived. I caught up, and I was like, wait, this was hard to walk through, but this was actually so clearly defining for me. Like, my sense of self. Like I could look in the mirror and be like, I'm freaking successful. Like there is no comparison. Like I've got this. Like I am awesome. And these are my values. And this is what I represent. And I'm not willing to compromise. Like it made me so grounded and solid at the end of the grief. But it was really emotional to go through that experience.
Yeah, the grieving process of who you have been and also the dream that you projected that was like this, I call it the pedestal problem. Like you put that thing up on a pedestal, and pedestals are very unstable surfaces and can get easily knocked down.
Yeah.
So in that expression of self, did you find new values inside of you, or did it just deepen?
It deepened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I was already really aware. I think for me, it brought into focus that not everybody has the same values, which sounds kind of silly and obvious to say out loud. But it wasn't obvious to me in that moment. Like, I think it's easy to forget when you're going through your day-to-day life that everybody's got a different lens. Everybody's got a different motivator driving them. And to see some of those things on this pedestal, it was a little disheartening because I'm not financially motivated. I like money, but look around at the RV, like I'm very lifestyle motivated. I'm very experience motivated. And so it just, I was in the wrong room. I've talked about it publicly, both in my community and on interviews. People can infer who it was in the group and all of that. And it's not hard to go digging, but I'm not here to blast the community. I'm not here to blast the leader. Like, I just want to share my own experience because there are some people that might feel at home in that room. But for me, it was more about discovering the room I always thought I wanted to be in actually isn't the room for me. And I think that was what was so hard because it had felt like this lifelong journey of trying to be, the cool kid or feel like, you're at the top or whatever. And I was kind of like, yeah, we're actually not. That's just not who we are. And there was this huge piece about it, that came later on.
How has your brand evolved through these iterations as you have experienced more freedom?
Yeah, a lot, but in different ways. So around the same time that I had that experience, we had some hardships in our family. And that's kind of putting it mildly, but, it forced me, we fill the container, and our capacity, my belief, is that we are not actually unlimited as humans. We can grow, we can expand. When I think about life pre-kids, I'm like, I thought I was busy. I'm like, I could not tell you one thing I did in my early 20s. I'm like, what were we doing? I don't know, and then you have one kid, and then you have two kids. I have three kids. I have two pets. I have a company. I have a husband with a company. Like, we have all these things happening. And so we absolutely have the capacity to expand, but I don't know that it is unlimited. I think as humans, we have capacities, and I reached mine at that time with what was going on in my family. And it made me have to reallocate kind of all of the things inside of my containers. And, I see a lot of women, especially, balance isn't real, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's ever been about 50-50, but I did experience this massive shift from like, okay, we're not even close now because my family life needs about 80% of my energy, my mental capacity, my time, my attention. And I had never had to do that before since being an entrepreneur, and it was really difficult. I will be very honest in that it's something that every now I still cry about. Like I literally will cry and be like, oh, I feel emotional thinking. Like I had to sacrifice a lot that I had worked to build and create, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would make the same choice, but it was hard because it wasn't like this no-brainer thing. Like, of course I love my family, but I also love my community. I love my business. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I'm proud of the impact I've created. So again, I wouldn't do it differently, but it was not easy. And so that was all kind of taking place the same time as this personal eye-opening. And so it was a lot. So for the free mama, what really had to evolve, I had to scale back. My immediate necessity was high and not thoughtful. So I had to shut down a mastermind that I had pretty much overnight. I canceled my podcast. I mean, it was just immediate. And again, I don't regret those things, but it is unfortunate that I didn't have the capacity to like have this big on ramp or off ramp for these things. I mean, it was like a sinking ship and I was throwing stuff off. Now that kind of the waters have settled, I'm different. My family's different. Our goals look different. The economy looks different because this has all been taking place over the last 3 years. So, right at the beginning of COVID, it was like this huge surge in business. But then as the economy and everything kind of started feeling unstable, everything went down. So again, this is all corresponding, same timeline. And so I really had to step back and go, what are my priorities? Like I've built a lot over 6 years. I've got a book. I've got, 10 funnels running. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got, all these different programs. And where do I want to put my time and attention? And where can I help the most people? But also where is it going to be the most profitable? Like, where's this going to all make sense? And so we actually eliminated, I would say like another 50% of my business at the beginning of this year, 2023, but on purpose with that, intentionality that I wasn't able to have in the place that I was at before. And so we actually switched from being known for our courses and coaching to we have a membership model now. And things are very simple. I have a membership model and I do some one-on-one coaching. And there was part of me mentally that felt like I was going backwards with the one-on-one because I haven't done one-on-one since like 2019. But when I did my self-check of what I'm like, no, I really want some of these strong, intimate relationships with these women who have, been in business, not the newbies that a lot of my stuff is catered to, but with these people who I have been with for 4 or 5 years, but I'm still several steps ahead of them. I want to have an intimate partnership with them. And so those are really our only two focuses. I've got, lead magnets and a low ticket and whatever. And we still have YouTube, but I've really backed off because we're going to be doing a YouTube channel for something else, which is kind of where I've gone with all of this. So to answer your question, the Free Mom has really changed, not so much as a brand, but our offers significantly changed. But what really emerged from all of this is I realized I had a lot to say and offer that doesn't necessarily fit under that umbrella. And so we launched a Lauren Golden brand, which would give me a little more fluidity to continue to grow because I'm in it. I'm at the beginning of it. I'm not, it's not this fleshed out thing like the Free Mama. It's something that I've just been living and experiencing and I'm making sense of, but I'm doing it in real time with the people who are following along.
What is the difference between the Lauren Golden brand and the Free Mama? Is there a difference in values or
a little bit
in your target audience?
Target audience, probably. Yeah. Still women, really. I mean, I always attract a few good men. I think if you are really solid in your mission, vision, and values, you will always attract outliers from your ideal client avatar. And I always have. I've always targeted that working mom who's stressed out, balancing it all. I have people who aren't parents in my community. I have men, I have grandparents, I have stay-at-home moms. None of my marketing has ever targeted them. So I think when you are clear on those things. So what's really interesting is I actually sat down with a branding expert a while ago because I'm like, I have these ideas swirling. I just don't even know what to do with it, And so we just kind of had these conversations. I'm a verbal processor, so I love things like this. But we sat down, and what was really interesting is that my vision from when I started the Free Mama ended up being sort of my mission for Lauren Golden. So there was a lot of overlap. So the mission of the Free Mama is to make sure that no mother has to choose between family and financial stability. The way we do that is by empowering women to start their own home-based virtual businesses, right? But the vision of that was like, well, why does that matter? Who cares where you're making money, what you're doing, And for me, why I wanted to become self-employed was because I wasn't living my best life. And so that vision, my personal vision, I actually have it written down in the next room. I brought it and made it to the RV. If you've ever heard of the concept of ikigai, it's like life's purpose. And I think that mine has always been to model and then show others how to live their version of a totally awesome guilt-free life. That's how I talk. Kind of Valley girl, but that's how I talk. And so that was always the vision behind the Free Mama, was like, the reason that this matters, the reason that this is important is because I want women to not feel guilty and not have regrets and feel like they're loving their life. And when I sat down to look at what does Lauren Golden mean? Who do I stand for? The mission really is to help women live that totally awesome guilt-free life. The way we do that, the mission and how I believe that's possible, regardless of whether or not you become self-employed, has to do with taking one courageous step after another. So it has a lot, the foundation of that is really courage.
Love me some courage. Yes, love me some courage. That is definitely the tipping point value in our coaching company with Crown Yourself. And because on a vibrational level, like that's actually what tips people over into the greater states of enlightenment, joy, love. It always comes from taking those bold acts of courage. And I can definitely say, having followed your journey for a while now, seeing you get the RV, rent out the house, sell the cars, like the whole thing, like you are the embodiment of that value. So how are you speaking to the two different sort of audiences? Yes, there is the overlap, but is there a communicatory difference in the messaging as to who you're speaking to and to the ideal customer avatar for both?
It's messy right now. I'm trying to separate. A few years ago, probably about 3 years ago, we ended up separating the brand online. So even before Lauren Golden, it was kind of this premonition, and it really was a catalyst from it was that beginning development of that freedom of self. Because prior to that, the free mama was part of my identity. And I don't think that's bad. I think it actually was part of my passion for my business that made it so successful and made people trust me and believe me and like me and think, well, if she can do this, I can do it. So I don't think it was all bad. And I have learned since then that identities can be fleeting. I guess, I don't know, it's you don't necessarily want to be synonymous with a brand like that, which is why Lauren Golden is so intentional, because it is meant to evolve as I evolve. I will probably have other businesses, but this would obviously not be one with the structure and IP and intentionality of let's sell this. Now, with the free mama, that's not something I had ever considered. I didn't even really realize that would be accessible or available. But now I think we look at things with a little more long-term potential of well, what could this be? Yes, I'm in this season of, I don't even want to say maintenance, because we are growing and I'm actually working on some really fun projects on the free mama side right now. But I just have my eyes open wider than I think I did when I started, where I was I love this thing so much. I will do this forever. And now I'm a little am I going to be 58 running the free mama, talking to 25-year-old new moms? I don't know, but it seems less likely now than it did when I started, And so I think those are some of the things that I look at, but I'm definitely in the messy action stage. Something that we had in one of my previous programs that I loved was a book club. And so something I decided to do was well, let's pull book club away from the free mama, because those people can still be in it or not, but it's not really specific to starting a business. We do a lot of personal development and other types of stuff as well. So we pulled that under Lauren Golden. It's hey, let's read together. Let's grow together. And then let's talk about, so I started a separate Facebook group for book club. I started a separate email list for Lauren Golden. Right now it's a once a month newsletter, but I'm definitely working through these belief systems and these value points and a little bit of, I would say even controversy of being so bold as to say this is what I stand for. And are you on board with, because I think every business has that a little bit. With the free mama, it was a little bit of the, network marketing was kind of we're not going to do network marketing. We're going to do freelancing, because statistically you're more likely to be successful working from home. So there was that polarization that we know is effective in business. And I'm testing the waters, I guess, is the very long answer to your question. I'm starting to separate. Some of those seeds were planted before, including on social media. And then one of the things that we're going to be doing on our trip, and actually I just got the background this week, the cover art, so I'm excited, is launching a new YouTube channel about our RV trip. But I'm going to be doing that under kind of the Lauren Golden brand. So again, I'm in that play stage. Before I launched the free mama, but I was still freelancing, I did a couple of podcast interviews, and I remember being gosh, I look at this. I have no idea what I'm saying. I don't know. But I think especially as a verbal processor, I think that process is important. And so I'm kind of just doing it in real time. I'm working through those messages. I'm seeing what sticks. I'm seeing what feels good to me, which at this point, I don't really do a lot that doesn't feel good to me. I've kind of worked through those boundaries. But that's where we're at. We're in the messy middle. I'm not thinking offers. I'm not thinking anything. With that said, I sold my first sponsorship. So that was like really cool. So that's something very different. Like that's not something I've looked to really monetize. I've done affiliate marketing on the Free Mama side, but I haven't really been like, oh, well, how do I sell a sponsorship? Whereas, so I'm playing and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but it's messy middle for sure.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years with both of the brands?
Probably hard to admit out loud, but I think that I will be beyond the Free Mama. I would love to sell it only because it would devastate me to see it go away. That's the only, it's done so much good in the world. You know, we've had over 7,200 students. My students have made over $22 million, and that's a poll surveying just 4% of our audience. So we know that the numbers are actually, profoundly more than that. It doesn't just change these women's lives, it changes their families' lives. The biggest surprise to me of launching the Free Mama has been when I hear from people's children or husbands and they come, it's waterworks for days. Like I never in my it just wasn't on the radar. That wasn't what I set out to do. I literally have a Free Mama in my community who lives in the Carolinas, whose daughter is my pen pal. Like we literally write each other letters and like she sends me the nicest, cutest that it's so moving. And I think based on what I know from the last 6 years and the pace at which I continue to choose to grow and evolve, I just don't see it being the active part in my life a decade from now. I see myself on stage. I said that 2 years ago as Lauren Golden was creeping the way forward. I've spoken on stage, but it's really been in the context of what I built with the Free Mama. And I'm grateful for that. It's funny. This is going to sound really arrogant. I promise I'm not actually comparing myself to Jennifer Aniston. I promise. She's a queen. We won't compare ourselves to her. But I kind of equate it to characters like her that have these long like she's Rachel Green. She's from Friends, and I've heard people, her included, but other people from other shows and movies as well, who they almost have a little bit of resentment. They're like, I just want to move on. I don't want to be known for that. I've always been like, ooh, no, I never want to lose that gratitude. I will forever be grateful to be known as Lauren who started the Free Mama. That is amazing, but it doesn't mean that it's how I want to fill my days. And I just have such a bigger, broader message, I think, that I want to share with people. So definitely more speaking, more books, which actually brings me to, if you want me to share, one of the projects I'm working on, because I'm really doing, I'm managing my time. I'm going to be homeschooling 2 out of my 3 kids. We're going to be traveling for the year. I've already scaled back my offers, which I told you about. But one of my sort of fun projects right now that I'm working on with my team is kind of playing the back end game. And so we've actually been taking some of my best-selling programs from throughout the years, which you can get the curriculum inside of our membership, but we're actually converting them into books, which is just a totally different medium. It's been really fun because with AI and transcription, you can move fast, really fast. If I've 3 other little we were cleaning up some stuff we already had, but if I were just laser focused on 2 of my best-selling programs, I already have the Google Docs. I just need to go in and format and clean them up. But I've already done the transcriptions, the layout, it's easy, honestly. And then for anybody listening who's like, wait, how does that even self-publishing on KDP, on Amazon? So that's really the game we're playing. We're redoing one of my planners that got taken down a couple years ago for somebody was shockingly able to get productivity planner federally trademarked. So I had to pull mine down because it had productivity planner inside of it. So it got taken down, but we've rebranded it without the term productivity planner in it. So that actually, I literally have the printer ready files up on my computer this morning. So we're going to republish that. We're going to republish my best-selling book that I wrote in 2019 and just kind of do a couple facelifts, little updates. And then we're actually working right now as well on a journal that I have kind of a mindset framework that I teach. And so we're going to make a journal that goes along with that. And then I already have 3 of my programs. 1 will be an ebook, 2 will be books, and they're already in the works. And so I'm kind of just playing this back end game. I'm going to play with ads and kind of use that for lead gen. Hopefully also some profitability will be really fun. But I'm just enjoying doing things differently, I think. I've done the same thing for a while. And while I'm really grateful for all of the mentors I've had and coaches and things that I've learned, it was all following a formula. And some parts of those formulas were great and I will keep, and it's wonderful knowledge. Some I'm unlearning because it doesn't feel good with this free version of myself. So I'm just playing. I'm in a season of play, I think.
Yeah. I think especially for the homeschooling aspect, because there's the unlearning that comes with everything that you thought education was.
Yeah.
In homeschooling, because we homeschool our kids.
Yeah. COVID was a crash course in that for me, because my biggest mistake, both the 2 months that they were home virtual, like of that school year in the spring, but we also homeschooled the first semester of that next year. And my biggest mistake looking back is I was trying to do school and I just didn't have knowledge or confidence or permission, I think, for myself to do it differently. And we are doing things differently. So I've given myself, so much so that like we've ended up finding a curriculum that the fall of 2020, I'm not even doing a curriculum this time, because that curriculum made me feel boxed in of like, well, now we're behind, or we have to, like, we're supposed to keep pay. And I'm like, no, I know where my kids are at. I know their strengths and weaknesses. I know what the basics are that we've got to master and be doing every day. But other than that, like, we've already been to 3 national parks. They've got junior ranger badges. They're doing their thing. We're reading every day. We're writing every day. Starting next week when oldest starts school, we'll start math again every day. We've got, it's so built into life. And so I love that you just distinguish between like the school and the learning. I didn't have that awareness in 2020, but I have it today. And that's what gives me the confidence that I can actually do this. Because if I didn't, we would not be here. No way. There's no way.
Yeah. Homeschooling was like a whole crash course because my son is 6. And so he's just kind of starting, and it came with us moving and this whole process. So it was a whole transition of exploring and also giving permission. And as soon as I connected, homeschooling is just like entrepreneurship. You got to unlearn everything that you thought you needed. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, when I have those doubts, because I want to just be like super transparent. Like my confidence level is probably like an 80% at this point, but like every now and again, I'm like, it's not what I had. And while my mid-20s were a huge season of like, what the heck? Like, I just felt like I'd been lied to in my childhood. I felt really grateful for what I had, and I went to private school and my kids have always gone to public school. My husband went to charter school. We've kind of done it all at this point throughout our family, but I was grateful for a lot of those experiences. But it was actually my daughter who's going to be doing a virtual school. And I was so on the fence because they're very entrepreneurial and they're very student driven, and it's block schedules like a college curriculum. And so it's a lot of personal accountability. And but this is my kiddo who like thrives in the box, which was me. I thrived in the box till I realized the box left me living paycheck to paycheck with debt and never seeing my kids. And I was like, what the heck? So, but I remember talking to him and he was kind of like, what if she doesn't have to have that moment in her 20s? And I was like, dagger twist. I'm like, fine, take my money, But in those moments of doubt where I'm like, are we doing the right thing? Is this what's best for them? I remind myself, my kids, because we don't have a dishwasher in this thing, my kids know how to do dishes. They're helping every night. They're 11, 9, and 6. My youngest is 6. And I have one here, so I got to be careful. She does better than the other one. She's the best one. She's better. And so I'm like, I feel like I didn't know how to do that. This is embarrassing. I'm not proud to tell this story, but I had to ask my roommate when I went to college to teach me how to do my laundry because my mom had always done. I literally got sent to college not knowing how to do laundry. Love my parents. I was the youngest. I was spoiled, but that was embarrassing. I don't want that experience. Like there were certain things, and I think this is what we all do as parents, right? We take kind of the good and we're kind of like, how can I recreate parts of that? And then we take the things we didn't know. I had no financial literacy. Even though I grew up in an upper middle class family, it just wasn't taught to me. And so those are things that when I think about, even though they're elementary school, what are the building blocks of that? What do they need to understand about money? Are you familiar with Greenlight? I think it's called Greenlight. It's an app.
No.
I'm talking about. No, I said no. Even okay. So this is Greenlight. I think I got an affiliate link. No, I'm just using you. I got my bigger affiliate link. We'll put it in the show notes. So click to the show notes. Absolutely. No, go check it out. It's called Greenlight. I discovered it a while ago and I kind of dragged my feet. But once we decided we were going on this trip, so basically each of my kids have a debit card, but there's an app. And so I transfer money to them. So we have a whole point system in our family where when they, have done their chores, brush their teeth without being told, they get up, they get dressed. I think there's like 8 to 10 things on this list. And if they do those things every single day, they get a point. A point is $1. We have these point cards. When they fill a point card, which is 10, they bring it to me and I get on the app and I transfer them $10. But like they buy their own souvenirs, they get their little tchotchke stuff. Like they have to learn how to spend it. But then Greenlight is really cool because it also has some educational content and the ability, I think like however much they spend, it automatically saves some for them. And then there's also an investing component. I haven't gotten into that yet, so I can't fully endorse that part. But that will be part of our quote unquote curriculum is I want to sit down with my kids. I want them to understand, money doesn't grow on trees, but it is in abundance. It is readily accessible. And here's how we earn it. And here's how I want you to think about choosing to spend it. And here's why we need to save some of it and all of these different things. And I think that is education that is tremendously lacking in the school system, but also from many families, not from ill will. Again, my parents are amazing. My dad's an entrepreneur, but I think if they would have known how much it would have helped me in my 20s to already have that information, that they maybe would have done things differently. So I want my children to understand those things. So those are the things I lean back on when I'm having those moments of doubt of like, oh gosh, do they know what an onomatopoeia is? I don't know. I got to Google that. Like, who cares? They know how to invest their money. We're solid. Like, they can fold their laundry. They know how to prepare food. They're good. So.
Yeah, I think it's those life skills. And I could totally see you in the Lauren Golden brand, branching into more homeschooling podcasts.
Maybe. We got to get our feet a little bit more wet first.
Honestly, like I would see homeschooling podcasts and parenting podcasts because you're doing parenting so differently. And I think COVID just changed the paradigm for expectations. I mean, when we moved to Texas, like everybody homeschools, like everybody that I've met homeschools.
Where are you again? Are you in Hill Country?
I'm in Hill Country, outside of Austin. Yeah. And like, I would say 80%, not everyone, 80% of people that I have met homeschool their kids. And it was just such a paradigm shift to eye-opening as to the difference in the educational system versus what actually is needed in education.
Yeah.
And I believe financial literacy is severely lacking both in the family level and in the educational level, and understanding investments and savings and how to just spend your own money and how to make money and how to how to generate it out of nowhere. And I think that's a skill set that as entrepreneurs we can bring to our kids. And I love that you're a second generation entrepreneur like me, because there is a different mindset that we were raised in. And I have found more second generation entrepreneurs tend to be entrepreneurs. They tend to end up starting their own businesses and so on. And I think that have you noticed in your entrepreneurial journey that you're more prone to taking risks because of how you were raised, because of being raised by an entrepreneur?
Now, the free mama is kind of where my mother meets my father. So I am both of my parents. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom who was always there, was always room mom, was at every party, picked me up from school every day, took me to school every day, schlepped me around to all my activities, took me to plays, she did everything for us. But she also really modeled charity work and volunteerism and all of these other components. So she nailed it, And then I had this dad who worked really hard. I do remember him in his office a lot at night, but now that I'm a parent, I think he was hiding from us because I don't know how much he was working versus like, I need a break from the kids. But my dad never missed a dance recital, never missed a soccer game, never, ever. He was always there for the stuff that mattered, even though I saw him working really hard. And so I think that was my crisis when I turned 25 and my oldest was born. And my husband and I, like I said, we had some debt. We were not a lot, but some. And we were homeowners, and we were both working. And there was no financial chance that I could have stayed home. And that was really my first like crushing adult moment, was like, I failed. Like, I can't even take care of my kid. And I had to really reconcile that. And luckily it happened quickly, because after my maternity leave, unpaid, which we don't have time for today, nor is that my dad in a fight, but it's not cool. My unpaid maternity leave, I went back and I realized pretty quickly, I love working. And so I can't imagine not working in some capacity. That's just not who I am. And so that was really good. But my son is 2 years younger. And when he was born, it went from like, okay, to like, I'm a failure. I'm failing at home. I'm crying every day. I'm failing at work. When I'm there, I want to be home. When I'm home, I feel like I should be doing, it was awful. And so that was kind of when my self-employment really took off. But I started freelancing probably about 4 or 5 months before I quit my job. My sort of origin story, if you will, of the free mama is that we actually found out I was pregnant again. We weren't trying, and I had a miscarriage, and I got kind of my first calling / download from the powers that be, like in that next day, literally, that it was this voice. It really sounded like a voice. And I've been told that it could have been Archangel Michael for all my spiritual people, but it was literally this voice that was like, what are you going to do now? Like, you're a control freak, you're a planner, like you were waiting for what are you going to do? And I walked in and I quit my job a week later and started freelancing full time and never looked back. I've been self-employed ever since. That was 2015. So, no, I was scared. I was really scared. And I think that's why courage to me now is so meaningful, because everything that I have today is not because the timing was right. It was not because it was easy. It's not because I was smarter than the other people. It's not because I had it all figured out. It's not because I was fearless. It's because I decided to do it in spite of the fear. It's because I decided to act with courage instead of with doubt and hesitation. And that was the first choice that I made. That was a series of 8 years now of choices where I continue to operate that way. But was that intuitive to me because of who my dad was? No, I don't think so, because it was really scary. My husband is the risk taker. He is like your textbook entrepreneur, very visionary, very high thinker. I am much more of like your CEO. Like, I can see both, but like, if you want something done, I'm gonna find the people and manage the process. Like, I can do both a little bit more, but I can get in the weeds. But yeah, no, I think I learned to take risks because risks bring me the life that I want to live.
Mm. You are so intentional with your language. I don't know if you know it, but
I would describe myself as intentional.
Yeah. The words choice and decide are so naturally a part of your nomenclature as far as like how you speak. And everything that I've heard throughout this conversation has always been an intentional decision or choice that has led you to that next step. So what does it mean to decide for you? What does that mean for you?
I don't know that I've thought about that. Thank you for your observation, by the way. That is something that I see in myself. I don't know that I had realized it was so intricate in my vocabulary, though. So that's fun to hear. I'll need to go back and listen. I think that I believe that we're all deciding no matter what. And that is not coming from a place of judgment or criticism for anyone listening who feels stuck. It is a looking in the mirror kind of thing. When I was freelancing, but too afraid to quit my job before my miscarriage, I was deciding to stay at my job. while also working, while also feeling like I never saw my kid. That was also a choice. So I think, I think part of it comes from the fact that I believe that we're all making choices all the time. I think part of it comes from, I really, really believe in the principle. There's also a book by this name that's wonderful by an I believe Navy SEAL, is Extreme Ownership. I believe in extreme ownership. So I'm also probably a recovering control freak, which there's probably some anxiety behind that. So I think all of those things probably marinated together. I want to control what I can control, but I know logically all I can control is myself. And so if I want to be in control, but all I can control is myself, then why wouldn't I take extreme ownership over the decisions and choices that I'm making every day? I think that's probably my philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could see that fully being embodied in what you're modeling in your content, in how you show up, in what you're creating, is you're modeling that freedom of choice and consciously day in and day out choosing this life and choosing what you're creating. And if something doesn't feel aligned, I have a feeling you'd shift that pretty quickly.
I would. And that's actually what I was thinking. I try not to do that. I try to really listen to the words and stay present. But I was just thinking, and also, when we decided to go on this trip, there was absolutely, like, I spoke it out loud to people of like, if we go and we're nuts, like, we'll be back. I mean, we can't get in our house because we leased it for a year. But like, I also don't believe in like making yourself suffer. Like, you don't have to, I was going to say, you don't have to live with your choices, meaning you don't have to choose them again and again and again if it's not serving you. You can then choose something different, right? And it's interesting, this is unrelated, but an example of this is when my family relocated. So I'd been freelancing about a year, I'd quit my job, and we relocated to Texas. We lived outside of Houston for 5 years. I don't know if I told you that. So we were in Katy, Texas for about 4.5, 5 years. We loved it. That's where the Free Mama was birthed. I think this space of being away from where I grew up is part of what gave that permission to blossom. And I loved our time there. My husband took the job that took us there. He's now self-employed. When he took the job that took us there, we said, like, if this doesn't work, we'll come back. And we loved it. What's interesting is that in 2020, in the fall, we actually moved back to Kansas City, which is where I grew up and where my first 2 kids were born. And we didn't give ourselves that same permission. And we had a really difficult couple of years there. Like, we were not super happy. Part of that was things were still shut down from COVID. It was very hard to meet people. We were homeschooling our kids. Like, it's a different breed of folks in the community where we live, which was part of why we left. But we came back to be close to family. And it was just, my husband and I were really lonely. My kids started to flourish a lot faster. And it really was just within like the last 6 months that we kind of started to find our footing. And it almost made us, it was one of the things that made going on the trip like questionable. Like, we just started to feel better here. Like, are we really going to leave? But, I wish when we would have moved back from Texas to Kansas City, I think I wish we would have explicitly given ourselves that same permission of like, if it doesn't work, we don't have to stay. And we didn't. And I think we felt stuck for years. But who knows, maybe part of that stuckness is what led us to this adventure. So we'll never know.
How did you gain this self-awareness of your power of choice?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess a couple things come to mind. One is the story that I told you about my miscarriage and hearing that voice. I mean, I feel like that voice was giving me permission to choose. It was saying, you're choosing that. And it really did sound like a voice. I know that sounds a little bit wackadoo, but it really was very real to me in that moment of like, and now I look back and like, that baby means everything to me. That baby changed the trajectory of my entire life. And so I think that maybe was what fleeting moment that planted a seed. My parents raised 2 very independent young ladies. And I can't even think of a particular instance, but we are both wildly independent and we're very different. We are very different, but we are both very independent. And so I don't know if there was something in parenting of that like independent thought. If we were given, those choices that kind of led us. I don't know, man, I'm going to have to journal on that one. That's a really good question. Let me put it this way. I can't think of a time when I wasn't aware. I can just think of times when I didn't exercise it well. But I don't really remember feeling powerless or like I didn't have a choice. I wasn't choosing to exercise it. I was choosing to feel sorry for myself. And Jen Sincero, however you say your last name, in her book, there's one part, and I wish I would have gotten that book like 3 years earlier. I would have been not broke so much faster, but I had already kind of launched the Free Mama and was on this trajectory by the time I had read the book. But there was one part in there where she talks about getting to be right. And one of her examples was like saying you're broke, like I'm broke. But part of the self-fulfilling thing is like, if you keep saying you're broke, you're going to be broke. And while you're broke, you're also right. And I remember reading that and being like, oh my gosh, that was me in like the early part of my 20s, like where I was just kind of in this wallowy, I wasn't an unhappy person, but I was not the full expression of myself. I wasn't tapping into any potential. I was just doing the motions of life that society had told me to do, kind of until that my kids being born, and then it was like enough, so yeah, I don't think I have a time or an aware, but I think I just liked being right about my circumstances, but I was stubborn and I was going to be broke and stuck and until I was like, oh, I can actually choose to do something different. That sounds better. Let's do that.
How are you choosing now to be wrong about who you have been?
Oh, my husband's been out of town. He got back last night. So it's my first time alone with the kids in the RV. The first day, the day after we dropped him off at the airport, I wanted to it was bad. It was really bad. And I told them, I was like, this is not going to fly for the next few days. And then Monday was like a great day. We had a really good day. And then yesterday was like not a good day at all. And I went I found myself going to control, I just want to control this situation. I just want you to do what I'm telling you to do. I just want everybody to cooperate. I know best. Come on. And that always works. No, it has not. And so I think this is my great unlearning maybe of this year as I get to learn alongside my kids. They also have freedom of choice. And so I think that how will we harmoniously coexist in our own individual choices and sort of that letting go of, it's not so much situation. I think I've done a lot of work on when situations, stuff breaks, the weather's not great, whatever, that somebody gets sick. Those things I think I handle well, but it's the you're not doing what I want you to do right now. I think there's work there. So that's probably, we can let that part of me die, but it's a process. We're not there. We're on the awareness. We're in the awareness stage.
As a fellow recovering control freak, I completely understand that awareness.
Yeah.
Currently working through that one myself with my own children, especially with the homeschooling journey. It is understanding and in a way coaching them to how they find their freedom of choice that actually supports them in their highest and best decision for their learning, because not always flipping between 14 different tabs is the best choice.
And in that same vein, I've become very aware, and I've done more work on this, but it's just been very high awareness for me lately. I'm very, what is it? The metacognition, when you can see your thoughts kind of thing. I've been very in that space with this. But the idea of when I'm triggered by other people, and I want to be you triggered me, as opposed to I am triggered. This thing happened. It feels like watching a movie, time slows down. And what's interesting is that's actually probably less with my family, because again, we're in early stages there. But I'll notice it on social media. I have unfollowed and unfriended more people in the last probably 60 days than the last 16 years or however many we've all been on whatever, Facebook, because I am kind of in this season of like, I really don't need my peace disrupted. And what's interesting is like, whereas before I might have been like, you made me feel bad or I don't like it. I'm like, I understand this is a me thing. And also we're not going to disrupt the peace. Like we're just not. I'm a pretty confrontational lady. That may or may not surprise you. I know most women, I think, avoid confrontation. I do not look at confrontation as conflict. I'm bold and I'm not afraid to speak up for myself. I think it comes with that. That comes, I think, with the independence from my parents, because my sister's the same way. And I have gotten into trouble, typically in election seasons or whatever's going on. I've gotten into trouble on Facebook where, someone is intentionally kind of doing that polarizing thing, and I'll like get into it. And I have gotten so good at like, you actually don't need to do that. Like you're not going to change someone's mind. You're going to feel good for a minute you post it, and when they reply, you're going to feel pain. And I know this because I've done this enough times that I know this. And so I've been catching myself, and it started with like, I'd write it and then I'd go down and be like, nope, we're not going to post it. Like, we're just going to walk away. And now I'm finding like, I'm not even as tempted to engage. I'm like, just let it go. And so that's something else that I would say that I'm kind of, I forget how you phrased the original question, but like, we're just letting that part kind of die off. Like, we're going to kind of unlearn that, because while sometimes confrontation is, it makes me a really good leader. I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations with my team or with clients. I think it makes me a good coach. But I don't need to get on Instagram with confrontation. I'm like, no, I'm right. Like, it's not a very effective thing. And 98% of the time I end up feeling badly, even if it's for a short amount of time. So kind of disengaging there too.
Yeah. So that's interesting that it comes up after the season of like the freedom, the full expression of you. And one of the concepts of our framework with our podcasting agency is having a polarizing, without being divisively polarizing, but having some sort of polarizing stance. So like, for example, one of our past podcast guests, the amazing Sarah Sharkey Harkness, she was very polarizing about, the choices that you make. And this is a common theme that I'm seeing of the women that are coming on this show. The choices that you make, and you're choosing to be miserable or choosing to not. And after her experiences and the way she framed it, I said, that's a really polarizing standpoint. And what I'm seeing and hearing from you is that that sometimes it's not necessarily getting granular about your polarization, like getting political or getting things like that, but even just the topic of freedom of choice, of being able to respect others' freedom of choices and navigating your own choices to whether you choose to stay feeling guilty and stuck in mom guilt and stuck in a 9-to-5, or choosing to leave that is a choice. And then that for some is a very polarizing topic, because a lot of people don't want to see themselves in that position of having to take that personal responsibility. It's like that.
Sure, that's difficult. And it also goes back to growth and fixed mindset. Carol Dweck's work, like your belief system will fundamentally impact what actions you take or not in life. I actually just saw, I think it was an ad actually, but I saw a video of Brendan Burchard's lately, and it was similar to that broke conversation of like, for him, it wasn't, what was he saying? It was, he grew up without a lot. And so for him, it wasn't about being right. It was about being comfortable. He knew how to not have a lot. He knew what that felt like. He knew what it looked like. And so for him, it was more about the comfort zone. An eternity ago example, but I dated the same guy for like 3.5 years in high school. And the first year was all like puppy love, so great. And then it was not a healthy relationship at all for either of us. And we knew that. But it was comfortable. It was not safe mentally or emotionally, but it felt safer than being alone or safer than being with the unknown. And so I think everybody has their own personal journey to walk, with like I try not to get into kind of the toxic positivity, or it's all mind over matter. Because again, we went through a mental health crisis with one of our kiddos last few years, and not everything is that simple. But I wonder if I have it in here. I took it out. I'm reading a really interesting book right now. I think it's called something like Someone Should Have Told Me This, or it's something similar. I'm botching it. I'll let you know. We'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes.
Really good though. Yeah, but it's written by a therapist, and she wrote this book about the recurring things that she's always telling her clients, because she feels like this knowledge should be readily available. And I've been reading it, and she's talking about like low mood, whether that's depression or just everybody has a bad day. And one thing like is, she says the problem with like that mind over matter, like just think positively, is like someone who that's hard for, they're actually going to spiral because they're just going to continue to beat themselves up. But the thing that she recommends for everybody is a level of action. You have to get into movement. You have to physically do something. And that really reconciles with, I think, like how I live my life and how I get out of stuff. And even just being in this messy middle of like, well, how are you distinguishing brands? I'm like, I don't know. I got 2 email lists. Like, what do you want from me? No, it's like, you have to do something. You have to start an action, make that decision to do something, even to something small, but then you're going to find the momentum. Then you're going to like get a little bit out of the thoughts, right? It's the movement that can create the space so that we're not obsessing over the thoughts that we're having. So yeah, I can see how all these different conversations and topics really intertwine. At the end of the day, I think if you're going to leave your life in someone else's hands, it's unlikely you're going to live the life that you want to live. And so whether you adopt extreme ownership or growth mindset, or you take courageous action, I think those things have to ultimately be up to you. And, as I'm saying that, I can even think of someone online who I recently just had to unfollow. And I know this person in real life, that he is, I guess what I will say, a traditionalist in air quotes. I will also say maybe misogynist, but, he thinks, men should be masculine, women should be feminine. And I'm just like, that's so, to me, simple-minded. I'm like, that doesn't allow anyone to have the full expression of themselves. I have masculine traits that are some of my best qualities and have made me very successful. And I've also worked really hard to tap into some of my more feminine traits. Men also have feminine traits. I just don't see anything as that simple in life. I think life is complicated. I think life is beautiful. I think life is hard. It shouldn't be done alone. But you should take some ownership of what you want yours to look like, whatever that means to you.
Lauren, how do we find you? How do we work with you?
Instagram, Facebook. If you're interested in stuff under the Free Mama, the best way to connect with me is the Free Mama Movement Facebook group. I'm in there all the time. I answer questions. If you want to know about the RV trip, all that stuff, come find me on Instagram, Lauren Golden Free Mama. I'm talking about all the things. But yeah, I'd love to connect, and just send me a message wherever you are. It's me. It's not my team. It's me. So I'll talk to you. I'll tell you where to go. We can be friends.
Awesome. Lauren, it has been such a pleasure having you on this show. Seriously, I would put you on all the homeschool podcasts, because you offer, honestly, you offer such a beautiful, fresh perspective for homeschooling that is not in the mold that people expect for homeschool parents, especially being as successful as you have been with the Free Mama movement. And that is, I see you really thriving in both the Free Mama brand and the Lauren Golden brand. So I'm very excited to see what you create and to follow along on your RV trip and see all the tours.
We'll be in Texas in December.
Come and visit. So, as always, my fellow communication queens, stand out and be heard.
Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.